Hey everyone, this is Rogério here, and today I'm going to be showing you how we implemented our integration tests and how you can run it and how you can see them in our GitHub. And also you're going to be able to understand how we structure it in a way that we can save resources and still run all the set of tests that we have, which is pretty much thousands of tests at the moment. So in our initial page here, the core of our tests are under the main CI workflow. So if you click the main CI workflow, you're gonna see the executions here, right? Like let's get the latest good one. This was merged today, so there was a few failures before everything was good to go. And there is a new PR that is being tested at the moment. So the last good execution was from the merge today. And we can see here that there is a hierarchy now. This is an introduction on the today's PR. So what this means is that we don't execute all the tests at once anymore. We first execute all the unit tests and the H2 in-memory database integration tests. So that's this step here. So this takes around 2 minutes to execute. So if that is successful, then we execute the full bulk of tests that we used to before. Okay, so that's a big difference because now we save a lot of resources in terms of executing tests, and we have a fail fast approach, right? Because we have a reasonably comprehensive set of tests that execute against H2. So if tests pass against H2, it's less likely that they're gonna fail anywhere else in the test. Okay, so what that means is that once our unit tests and H2 tests finish, we're gonna start our multi-node integration test that is for disaster recovery testing. We also need notify this notify integration kicks in a test that is in a different repo, and this repository here has integration tests for Spring Boot, Quarkus, and Micronaut. So if we check here, there is tests for Spring Boot, Quarkus, Micronaut, and Spring Boot with Atomicus for distributed transactions. So that's what that is doing. So if we expand a few of these guys here, we can see that Cockroach DB was tested. DB2 specifically was tested for all these JDKs there, 11, 17, 21, and 22. Same with MariaDB, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, and SQL Server. There are differences between how these workflows run, because, for example, for Postgres, we pack with the JDBC driver, so we can pretty much just run the tests. But with SQL Server, we cannot pack with the JDBC driver because it's a proprietary system. So we basically put the driver just during the test with test scope and run the tests, and then that goes away. It's never committed to the source code, not even as a test. We have a placeholder in the POM XML that during the test we just add the JDBC driver for the duration of the test. So here we can see all the tests that ran. Okay, so it's very comprehensive. We have about, I think, individual tests. We have around 1,000 tests at the moment. We would have to count all of them individually, and they run 4 times, right? So it's easily more than 3,000 tests running every time before we release anything. And that's how we are running integration tests in the pipeline at the moment. Now I'm gonna show you how it became easier to run it in your local setup. So if you downloaded the code, you're gonna have something similar to this, right? So let me just compress everything here. That's what you're gonna see. And you're gonna find the integration tests here in the OJP JDBC driver. So all the integration tests are in there. Let's just go here. So if we go to test, actually, Java, Open J Proxy, JDBC. So these are all our integration tests. All these tests are the ones that run there in the workflow. So let's get, for example, here, I think I opened one here already, SQL Server. Let's use the SQL Server result set test. To run this test, what you're gonna have to do is, we have flags like this, enable SQL Server tests. So all the integration tests for individual database is disabled by default. So before we test it, you're gonna have to, if you run it just like it is, it's not gonna work, you see, because it's disabled. And when you come here to edit configurations, in this area here, you can add the environment, the property, right? The command line property, and set it to true, or the JVM argument, better saying. So once you enable this test and run it again, you see that it's now running the test. Now this test is not gonna work because I'm not running the OJP server locally. And if we look quickly at how OJP works, if we just come here to our home page for a second and look at this diagram here, we can see that the proxy server is a separated service that runs separate from the application, right? So what we need to do here is to locate where it is. So we have the commons, the JDBC driver, and at the bottom here we have OJP server. So we need to locate the OJP gRPC server and run this guy. Now I cannot just run here because this gRPC server 2, I changed the ports to do tests with multiple servers, okay? So if you're cloning for the first time, you can just run the server and it will work. Because I have multiple configurations, I need to use this one, which is set to the default port. But if you're downloaded the first time, you just run the server and it should be fine. Now, there is only one problem here. I need to refresh the libraries. Just give me 1 second here because I don't really see. Let me just refresh reload the libraries and do rebuild on the code. That's because I was doing this test before I started recording, so and it's still picking up a dependency that it shouldn't, and I know about it. So let me just give it a time to recompile. And let's run again. Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. You see here, these logs show you that it didn't find the drivers for the proprietary databases. And that's in purpose, like I commented before. We don't pack with them because they are proprietary. We don't have licenses to distribute them. So we don't. We follow the license agreements. But we are allowed to test with them. So like I said before, like in our pipelines, in our workflows, we add the driver with test scope and we test with the drivers. And locally, you can do the same. So to be able to execute a SQL Server test, we're going to have to add the driver in the OJP server POM XML. So let's just find the POM XML here. And where can you find the SQL Server driver? So to make it easier, we have it in our documents. So if you come to environment setup and you select your SQL Server testing guide here, if you scroll here, there is all instructions on how you can even set up a SQL Server database if you want to test with a database. But as I explained before, we migrated these tests to test containers now. So you don't need to do this anymore. We probably need to do a bit of cleanup on this page. Still to be reviewed if we want to keep this information somewhere. But all you need to do is to get the driver, add the driver to your POM XML, again, because my face is in the corner there and I cannot see, I'll just decrease the size of this and reload all Maven, because now I wanted to pick that dependency. Let me stop the server for a second and rebuild the project. This is just to refresh the dependencies, because we want this log to go away. We want the OJP server to find the SQL Server JDBC driver. If it doesn't, we won't be able to run the test, because you won't be able to connect to the SQL Server database. So yeah, that should be good now. Let's run it. And that's fantastic. Now we see that it doesn't have for Oracle and DB2, but it doesn't show a complaint here in relation to SQL Server. That means that the dependency we added there was used, and now we are good to run our test again. So let's run from here, because we set that environment variable, remember? Sorry, not environment variable, the JVM parameter. So if we come here, that's the JVM argument we included there is there, and we're gonna run it now. Let's just give it a time. SQL Server takes the test container takes a little while to start, right? So let's just be a little patient here. This is these are the attempts for health status of test container, right? So then nothing to worry about. This warning is just the database is initializing. So the warning is saying like you couldn't pre-log in, but because the database is not ready yet. So let's just give it a moment. And it should pass these tests in a second, hopefully. Let's see. The great advantage of this new version is that now it's a lot easier to run these tests locally. So as you see, like you clone the project, you run your OJP server locally, and you enable these flags, and you should be able to be running any integration tests you want locally, and you don't need to run any database locally anymore. In the previous version, we had to run the database in a Docker image at least, but that required, for SQL Server, for example, many extra steps like creating a user, creating the database, etc. We see that the tests are running, they are passing, so that's exactly what we wanted to see. And that's what I had prepared for this video. So as I mentioned before, now it's a lot easier to run these tests and to check. Also in the pipeline is a lot cheaper, because it identified problems early, so we implemented a fail-fast approach in our integration tests. So we run first H2 tests. If those fail, we don't run anything else, because there is no purpose. If you fail basic tests, if your RPR fail basic tests, there is no purpose on running a lot more tests and spending more resources. But if the preliminary tests run, we run everything else, and we also trigger this notify integration triggers the other integrations here with Java frameworks, Spring Boot, Quarkus, Micronaut, and Spring Boot with Atomicus. So those are the extra tests we do. Thank you very much for staying with me and watching this video. I hope it was helpful. I'll see you next time.